You hit the ball out of the park with SPK Sports. You hit the ball out of the park with Scott, Paul, and Kelly. You hit the ball out of the park, Speak Sports.
And thank you, Aerosmith, for the jingle. They don't usually do that genre, but we're appreciative. My name's Scott.
I'm Paul.
I'm Kelly.
That's why we're SKP or SPK.
Speak Sports.
Okay. Anyway, not really the smoothest opening, but that's okay. We're just three neighbors just trying to have a little fun, and hopefully you will have some fun with us on this Sunday afternoon. Leading off today is Paul.
Hello, baseball fans. Since last week's show, several viewers and listeners on various platforms have asked if we'd be commenting on any of the social or political goings-on in baseball these days. One friend of the show, a longtime baseball writer and author, urged us to stay away from what he called ESPN-style political commentary. Yet another friend encouraged us to go on record and talk about what's become the new ritual involving the national anthem. So we have literally been encouraged to both stay mum and to speak out. Now, ever since we started talking about doing this show, Scott, Kelly, and I have been on the same page. Baseball has always been that sacred place for each of us, a place where we could escape the sorts of pressures that the world imposes on all of us. Now, without any intention of trivializing this great game, in the end, it really is just that big toy box where we find solace and refuge by focusing on the cool stuff that's inside. We began SPK Speak Sports from that place of innocence. But today, we'd like to try to defuse the bomb. Or because this is just baseball we're talking about, maybe it's more like just removing the mousetrap that somebody threw in the toy box. So with apologies for mixing metaphors, there is an elephant in our living room, and we can't simply ignore it. So after some serious soul searching, we decided to go on record about what we three guys in Idaho with roots in Southern California are all about. So now then, without any hesitation and in complete solidarity, we proclaim
MLB!
Because it's baseball that matters to SPK Speak Sports. Scott?
Thank you, Paul, for leading us off today. Well, we actually did have some MLB action in the last couple of days, and so we thought we'd just kind of kick that around for a little bit. And Kelly, why don't you give us some thoughts on the last 2 days?
Well, I'm a big Angel fan, and so that first game was kind of rough. It went into extra innings, and we also were hit a grand slam by Matt Olson, and I'm telling you, he hit that ball so hard. I think those cardboard cutouts stood up and cheered. I really do. And so I was happy baseball's back. And then I watched the game and was a little disappointed, but it's great to have it back and see some of the players play. We saw some great performances over these last few days, and I'm pretty happy about it.
Hey, Kelly, speaking of cardboard cutouts, did you see that Will Smith of the Dodgers hit a home run and practically decapitated one of those cardboard cutouts? And the fan whose picture was on that cutout, he's getting the ball.
Well, he should. He should. That was great. Yeah, I saw that. And I also saw a lot of the CGI that's in the seats, and there's people there that are all of a sudden they're there, and then they're not. So
then there's the canvas.
Yeah,
Evidently, all the games on Fox are going to have CGI, I think, when they do the replay.
Okay, yeah.
So all of a sudden you see tarp, ball hit a tarp, and then the replay with all these fans in there, and then back to a tarp. So I guess that's the deal with Fox. They're going to do a CGI type of thing. Also on the Angels game, so the trivia question is going to be years from now. Who was the first guy to be on second base in the top of the 10th inning of a tie ball game, which would be Shohei Ohtani, Showtime.
Yes.
So that's the trivia question for that. And a friend of mine, George Thomas, who played in the big leagues back in the 60s, brought up an excellent point, which we never had thought about. if a guy is on second base and when he scores, when that runner scores, is that an earned run to the pitcher? I wouldn't think so, because he hasn't given up a hit or an error or anything to be on second base. And if you lose by that one run, you thought it was going to be a team loss?
It should be a team loss. How can a pitcher take that L when he didn't have anything to do with putting that guy on second base?
That's true, yeah. And then the runner who made the out to the previous inning, like Shohei did in the game Friday night, then he gets credited for a run scored, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
And what a great guy to make the last out to run, because he's so fast.
Yeah.
But what if you had he obviously isn't playing for a long time, but a Mike Scioscia who ran like he had a piano on his back. So I guess that's when you put in the who was it, Ron Washington years ago with the A's, and that was his only job, to pinch run at first base and steal. But I don't think he ever batted, did he?
No.
Yeah.
And he even got picked off in the World Series. Remember that? Mike Marshall picked him up.
Absolutely.
Also, there wasn't any social distancing going on when Olsen came to home plate on that grand slam. I mean, they played it up just like there was nothing going on. So that was interesting. I saw a lot of guys sitting in front of an X in the dugout. So, it is what it is.
And it was a shot, man. It was a shot.
Yeah. And then we have Dr. Fauci, who, at least if nothing else, the ball did carry past the first baseline. But he said that his excuse was, supposedly he played ball, 60 years ago or so, hadn't touched a ball in all these decades, and decided the night before or the day before to, I guess he was passing a school or something, and decided to play catch with somebody, and he overdid it, and the next day his arm's hanging down. Well, first of all, Doc, even if you hadn't done that, don't be throwing it 2 feet in front of the rubber, because it's not going to get there. I mean, even if you throw a strike, it's going to be a ground ball towards home plate. But
I wasn't surprised at all. The ball didn't reach the plate. I mean, the guy's 79 years old. The thing that did surprise me, though, was that he's not a lefty.
Well, the one thing he should have said was, in like Star Trek, you should have said, "Jim, I'm a doctor, not a pitcher."
That's right.
Also, I guess all the teams, I'm just going by what I know from the Angels and a Red Sox game. Red Sox announcers are announcing from Waterbury, Massachusetts, I think, wherever maybe the main studios are. So, and that was a home game. So I thought, well, maybe they're just not going on the road, which was the Angels' case. Those guys are in the production truck at the Big A. But the Red Sox, I guess, they were home, and it sounded like everything they were going to broadcast was going to be from the booth. So
I don't understand that. Why can't they put them in the press box? And
All the fans are in production trucks all across the country, too.
it's unbelievable.
Nobody's in the stands.
But that was reminded me of back in the old-timey days, when even in the major leagues, too, they used to do recreations of games on the radio, because obviously until the 50s, there was no televised ball games. And major leagues, they, to cut down on the budget, they'd have their announcers stay at home, and they'd have a bat with a hammer for when a batter hit a ball. And I know in the old Pacific Coast League, they were doing that up till that old league folded and became the new PCL until 1957, where everything was recreated except when Los Angeles played Hollywood. Obviously, that was just a few miles away. But I think I was listening on the way home yesterday to the end of the Angel game on Sirius XM, and it was the A's announcers, and it sounded like a ball game on the radio. Also, the A's announcer on the wrap-up, it's like he's talking to his fellow broadcaster about how the night before with the Grand Slam, we were so up, and today we're kind of down. And it's like, dude, you're only 2 games into the season. Chill out and take the highs and the lows and just kind of stay in the middle somewhere. Anyway, the other thing that we were talking about was that today would have been a great day at Cooperstown, New York. Ted Simmons, Derek Jeter, Larry Walker were going to be inducted, along with Marvin Miller, who was the 20-year president of the MLB Players Association, MLBPA. But that's obviously not happening because of the Wuhan virus. And so that's going to be canceled until hopefully 21 with whoever else might be inducted. So Tim Meade's a friend of the show. He's the president of the Hall of Fame as of just about a year ago this month. He was with the Angels for many decades, vice president of communications. So for Tim, we're sorry that it's got to be kind of a quiet Cooperstown Sunday this year, but next year will hopefully be even better.
Tim was the sports information director at Cal Poly Pomona.
Where you went to school, Paul. And speaking of Cal Poly Pomona, Paul played for a coach named John Scalinas, who was inducted into not the Major League Hall of Fame, but he was a great college coach, and he's been inducted into the College Hall of Fame. I think that was about 91, I think I read. So early 90s, had over 1,000 wins at Pepperdine and Cal Poly Pomona when he retired, which was only behind Rod Dato, the legendary USC coach. And he won 3 Division II national championships. He was the pitching coach on the '84 Olympic team. So he was one of those life lesson coaches, I guess you would say, as a baseball coach. And Paul has a great story about Coach Scalinas.
Coach was just an amazing man. He was part philosopher, part father figure at least, and just full of good humor and good values. Part of me is having a hard time here because when I talk about Coach, I just want to use that gravelly voice that he always talked with. He'd say things like, "You can't stay up with the owls and soar with the eagles." Now, I'm not going to do that for the next couple of minutes of telling the story, but you can use that voice when you're listening to how Coach's wisdom affected a lot of people. Scott, you actually brought this story to my attention maybe a year ago or so. Coach was making a speech at the Baseball Coaches Association, American Baseball Coaches Association gathering a number of years ago, and he was wearing a home plate around his neck for the first 20 minutes. Of
The same size, too.
Yes, of his presentation. And, well, let's just talk about home plate. So how wide is home plate, Kelly, in Little League?
17 inches.
Scott, you were a longtime umpire. How wide is home plate in high school ball?
17 inches.
How about college ball?
17 inches.
Kelly, minors?
17 inches.
And in MLB?
17 inches.
That's right. So what do you do with a big league pitcher who can't get the ball over that 17 inches? What you don't do, as Coach would say, is you don't go out there and tell him, "It's okay, Jimmy, you can't get the ball over 17 inches. We'll widen that plate to 18 inches or 19 or 20 or maybe 25. So not everybody gets a trophy. If you can't make it over the 17 inches, where do you go? Well, Coach would say, you send them to Pocatello. I'm not even sure they have a team anymore, but in any event, what do you do, coaches? What do you do, parents, if your best player doesn't follow team rules? If your oldest child, second child, whatever it might be, doesn't follow family rules? Do you widen the plate? Now, this can go on for a long time because Coach was a great public speaker, and he'd go on for 20 minutes or so with this story. But he had a great metaphor there for the problem in our homes today. He said in our churches today and in our government is that we keep widening the plate. So if we fail to hold ourselves to the higher standard, to that 17-inch standard, then there's only one thing that'll happen. We'll have dark days ahead. So in summary, coaches, parents, no matter how good they usually are, if they deviate from the 17 inches, catch it quick. Coach had another saying. He said, everybody wants to be a big league ball player, but it's more important to be a big league person. And he certainly was. Now I'd like to make a shout out to Coach Scalinas' nephew, Harry Scalinas, who is a great friend of mine and a friend of the show's. So Harry, Hope you're doing well. Back to you, Scott.
Well, he was a great man. I didn't know him personally, but the fact that what you talked about, he was talking about decades ago, isn't just what's going on with the country today. Also, let's keep on the college baseball scene for a second. We live in Idaho, kind of miffed that the Boise State University baseball team was cut because of the pandemic that's going on right now, along with women's swimming and diving. The unfortunate thing, I don't know about you guys, I was ticked off about that. Some of these kids, 12 of them as a matter of fact, gave up their college playing in 2019 so they'd be eligible for this year. And they went out after the team was cut, and they raised about $1 million, you told me, I think, Paul, to get the program back, even though during that period of time that they were fundraising, the administration said, we're still not going to reinstate baseball. And true to their word, they didn't reinstate Boise State baseball. So I just think Bowling Green University did the same thing, and they were reinstated. Not exactly a powerhouse team. So just a little upset. I think that was probably a tougher cut after raising all that money and going through all that to get cut the second time and not be given a chance.
It's a darn shame. Boise State hadn't had a team since 1980. They finally fielded a team this year before everything got shut down with COVID. I think they'd won. They were something like 14-9 or something like that. They lost two of their first three games, but they were to Texas, a national powerhouse, and they were in two of those three games. Yeah. Then they got really hot. And some of these kids came from other programs. There were graduate transfers. It's just a darn shame.
That's on the cheers part. Now, the cheers part, I read recently with the Kansas City Royals. They signed a ball player, and the only question he asked, he wasn't drafted in the first 5 rounds. The first and only question he asked is, how many minor league ball players did you cut in your system? A lot of ball players, I think there was like 1,000 minor leaguers, something like that were cut. And they said, we didn't cut any of them because we want to have a good experience with our team and a positive experience. We hope that with this, the ball players didn't do anything wrong to be cut. And they said, so at some point, maybe these guys get into coaching down the line on the professional level or college or high school or just coaching their little league team. But that they wanted it to be a good experience, and the ball players signed with them, and I think they signed 3 or 4 other ball players because of the same thing. They just felt that there was a loyalty between management and the ball players. So I think that's a cheers part. What do you got, Kel?
Well, I think that says a lot about Kansas City's organization.
Yeah.
And what's important to the ball player. So.
Yeah.
I'd like to just have a shout out to Bryce Harper, who yesterday got his first hit. Now, we all know he plays for the Phils, and he's a home run hitter. He's a great player. He's making a lot of money. And so they have the shift on him, this whole thing with the shift in Major League Baseball, this crazy shift. Paul was talking about it, and about bunting and not bunting. And so what does he do? He puts down a perfect bunt right down the line, right inside third base. That's his first hit of the season.
Clearly, Harper was watching our show last week.
Definitely.
I mean, that's the only thing that
he's got good taste. So
I have a cheers. I have a cheers to Daniel Bard.
Yeah.
After 7 years of not being able to play because of the yips, which is I guess sort of an inability to cope with a lot of sensory stuff around you, and he couldn't find home plate. As a pitcher, that's a problem because it's 17 inches. But he came back, and here he is at 35 years old. He threw a ball, you said 102 miles an hour?
Well, in his prime, yeah.
Oh, I think I saw that he did hit 99 yesterday, which is pretty darn good for a 35-year-old. And
he got the win.
He did. Yeah. Cheers to Daniel Bard.
And Cespedes with the Mets hit a home run on opening day for them. He now has 3 home runs in a row, 803 days apart. Because he was injured about this time 2 years ago. He was running away from a wild boar and I guess stepped in a hole. Cespedes did, not the boar. So I guess he won't be living in New York City anymore. Also, I want to just, and this is off the subject of baseball or sports, but I heard a couple weeks ago, I meant to mention this last week, and I feel bad for her. Because of the pandemic, I read where Christy Brinkley has gained a couple of pounds.
Oh.
And I feel bad, but hopefully she'll get on that treadmill and be able to work those couple of pounds off. Because she's had a rough go of it as far as physical looks and figure and all that. So, and wait a second, I got somebody coming in. Oh, hey guys, Cleveland Indians. This is still in the rumor stage, but from my sources, Cleveland Indians have finally got a new last name. The Redskins.
Hi-oh.
Because it's not being used anymore. So congratulations to the Cleveland Redskins. What else would you like to talk about?
Do we have any predictions for the upcoming week?
Predictions.
Baseball predictions are always dangerous.
Yogi Berra once said about predictions, they're hard, especially when they deal with the future.
Yeah, there you go. That's Yogi.
So any prediction? Oh, yeah, we need to talk about real quick. My brother-in-law said, how can this guy predict 27 homers and 75 RBIs in 60 games? So we talked about the other day. Go ahead.
Right. Well,
Read your case.
I mean, the conventional wisdom is you play 162 games, so you do the math. Okay, and you say, wait a minute, there's only 60 games. But these 60 games are in the summer. There's not going to be any dog days of summer. So the weather's hot, the ball's flying out. I don't think they've fixed the ball to be not as juiced up. And so we'll see. There's players like Stanton of the Yankees. And he's already starting to hit with power, and he looks pretty good. So there might be a couple guys there that all you need is 2 months where you're really hot. You don't have to stay hot for, over the course of the whole season. Guys can do that in 2 months. So we'll see.
It since last week, it projects out to 72 homers and 200 RBIs. So Barry Bonds, if you're watching, that's not you. Also, I know this will affect all of us.
Okay.
Hockey. NHL, Seattle has a new NHL team. They are going to be calling themselves the Seattle Kraken. Kraken. I looked at the phonetics. I don't know if it's Kraken, but it's a sea monster.
Kraken, yeah.
In Scandinavian lore. And they wanted something that was strong and noble. I thought that was like American Indians, but I guess that's another story. So the Seattle Kraken. So
it's an auto parts dealer.
Or Kragen.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Kragen.
Kragen Auto Parts.
Scandinavian. Any last thoughts on anything coming up?
I have one, and it's on this day in history, baseball history, because Corny kind of bothered me about this week. On this day in history, a record was set that still hasn't been broken. Patrick Henry, he went by Harry McCormick, the only player ever, to hit a home run in the first inning and throw a complete game shutout, winning 1-0. So, contemporary of Cornelius, and he deserves a shout out. Way to go, Harry.
Absolutely.
And I'll give one last shout out to Rick Reed, who was an excellent Major League Baseball umpire. He was the home plate umpire in For Love of the Game, Kevin Costner film. And he just, to me, looked like an umpire. Barrel-chested, kind of a John Wayne-looking guy, no nonsense, was just there to do the job, not making it about him, but just a very good umpire. And he was only 70 years old, but seemed like a pretty good guy as well. So, are we done for the day,
I think that's it.
So.
Okay.
All right.
Once again, we thank you for joining us today on SPK Speak Sports.